Hey, what's up, Raider Nation? My name's Anthony Galaviz. Hope everybody had a um, great Monday. Now we're on to Tuesday. I'm sure many of you got to watch Pete Carroll's conference on Monday. Heard what he had to say about the game where they lost big to the Kansas City Chiefs and stuff that he noticed that went wrong and everything else that went bad in Kansas City Arrowhead. Um, the thing about it is I just don't know which direction this team's gonna go. I don't. Nobody knows, and it's just something that you're gonna have to find out after the bye week. He mentioned a little or two about Brock Bowers returning, possibly returning after the bye week, along with Lonnie Johnson and Jacoby Myers. If they can get those three back, that's a big boost for the Raiders, including Max Crosby, who he said it wasn't himself on Sunday. The game was already out of reach by the time the second quarter hit. So, really, it was more like a bye week for Kansas City Chiefs more than the Raiders heading into the bye week. They need to regroup and get back to the basics after the bye week when they play the Jaguars at Legion Stadium. But just wasn't encouraged when I had to hear about Pete Carroll on Monday. One of the things that he mentioned was Kenny Pickett, first play, he fumbled, blah, 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 and just basically threw him under the bus. I don't like that because, there's been mistakes by other Raider players during the season, and he doesn't call them out, but instead he calls out Kenny Pickett. That's unfair. That's not right. I think Pete Carroll needs to own it. Um, Also, kind of tired of hearing about didn't see it coming. Of course, he saw it coming. All week in practice, they had plenty of time to figure out how they're going to attack the Chiefs. They didn't attack the Chiefs at all. The Chiefs attacked them. And it came to a point where Andy Reid felt sorry for Pete Carroll. Did you guys see before the 2 minute warning where the Chiefs were in victory formation? Um, that says a lot about Reed. Basically, excuse me, um, feeling sorry for Pete Carroll more than the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders and Chiefs are rivals. Which will well, Raiders have won in Arrowhead in the past 4 years. So, but just look at the Raiders though. Health wise, they're okay. But like I said, I think Pete Carroll needs to start taking accountability, especially naming players like he did with Kenny Pickett, because Geno Smith really hasn't done a darn thing for the Raiders this year. And every one of you are, you know, every one of you are waiting for that. And by the time he probably gets rolling, Raiders probably be like 2-12, whatever it is. At 2-5, there's still time, barely, but Raiders need to get going. And are they going to get going? Chip Kelly, not impressed with his offensive calls. Uh, it's atrocious. But then again, not having Brock Bowers is going to do that. So we'll see if Chip Kelly has anything in store. I think the Raiders need to stick to their running game, stick to Ashton Jeanty and trust him. Uh, and, you know, that's why you drafted Ashton Jeanty in the number 6 spot in the NFL draft. So we'll see how the offense comes about, after the bye week. The defensively, work in progress, maybe. I don't know. But getting Lonnie Johnson back, maybe, will be a big boost for the Raiders in the defensive backfield because they need a lot of help. Not entirely comfortable with the quarterbacks at all. And I said that before the season started, and here we are talking about it again. Kyle Blue Kelly struggling. I like Darnay Holmes over Kyle Blue Kelly, but we'll see how things go if see if they tinker with anything during the bye week because this is a time where they got to figure things out quickly because you got the Jaguars coming in. Then you go to the Broncos, who rallied to beat the Giants, a game that they should have lost, but they found a way to win. So there's that. And then they got another game. Then they got a game against the Cowboys at home. Cowboys looking really good, but then again they're off and on as well. So that's all I have to say. Really, keeping it at the 5 minute mark. I just want to give my thoughts on Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll needs he needs to get going here. The way the Raiders play falls on him and the rest of the coaching staff. Well, I should say the rest of the coaching staff, especially on offense, got to put up points. Good grief. So, if you got to put up points with Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers, then something's entirely wrong. So, we'll see what happens. All right, guys. We'll talk again later. Have a good one.